My spirit animal is 10mm auto. When I close my eyes at night, I imagine myself careening through the inky dark night sky, screaming towards any target foolish enough to try to impede me. And if 10mm auto is my spirit animal, then undoubtedly my guide, my shaman to this ballistic astral plane is the Glock 20 Gen 5 MOS. Because the Glock 20 Gen 5 MOS might be the perfect 10mm handgun. Between its capacity, modularity, and flawless reliability, it's a very tough act to top. But the 10mm Glock has been around for a long time. Is it still the top dog for big bore blasters on a budget? Well, let's take a closer look at the Glock 20 MOS Gen 5 and find out. The Glock 20 MOS Gen 5, like all Glock semi-automatic handguns, is a locked breech magazine-fed handgun that feeds from stagger column 15-round magazines and utilizes a polymer frame. What really separates this model from others is its use of the ultra-potent 10mm auto round. Developed in 1983, the cartridge was adopted by the FBI in response to the 1986 Miami shootout, where the issued 9mm 38 Special handguns and 12-gauge shotguns proved incapable of stopping two assailants armed with superior weapons. In effect, the FBI's adoption of 10mm was meant to give agents magnum stopping power without the limited capacity and the slower reloads of a revolver. As far as terminal ballistics, 10mm auto is a resounding success. It produces nearly double the muzzle energy of a 9mm. But most gun designs of the era still restricted the magazine capacity of guns chambered in 10mm to 10 or fewer rounds. This can be seen on the now famous Bren 10 of Miami Vice fame and the FBI-adopted Smith & Wesson 1076. Now, both of these guns have their merit, but they're held back by limited capacity and heavy overall weight. Glock's response to these guns came in 1991 with the introduction of the second generation Glock 20. With a 15-round standard magazine capacity and dramatically lighter overall weight, the Glock 20 was an instant hit with 10mm fans. Now, since then, the engineers at Glock have further developed the 10mm gun into a modern magnum fighting pistol equally at home by the bedside of a sleeping homeowner or on the hip of a hunter tracking dangerous game. That said, the Glock 20 is now more than 30 years old. So let's talk about how the lightweight blaster has evolved since then. The biggest and most apparent difference between the original Glock 20 and the Gen 5 is the inclusion of the optics cut on the rear of the slide. This cut allows the mounting of an RMR footprint micro reflex sight to the included plate after removing the polymer cover. As far as the generational differences between Gen 2 to Gen 5, they're far too numerous to list here, but here are the most important differences from the previous generation to the current one. The standard 4.6-inch polygonal rifled barrel has been replaced with a Glock marksman's barrel, which provides better accuracy due to tighter tolerances and sharper rifling. The slide around this barrel is now finished in an NDLC coating that looks similar to a cross between the shiny Teflon-like finish of the Gen 3 pistols mixed with a more matte-like dark parkerizing of later models. Now, while the color and texture might be different, they're all nearly impervious to rust and wear caused by standard use and even, truth be told, neglect. Now, another noteworthy feature is the included ambidextrous slide stop that makes manipulating the gun just as easy for southpaws as the rest of us. Now, below this, the grip has been redesigned again to exclude the old molded finger grooves in favor of a highly textured grip with a flared magazine well that also doubles as a point of retention like a pommel on a sword. Lastly, the base plates on the magazines have been slightly enlarged to make extraction easier when a shooter's hands are either wet or oily. Next, let's get to what's in the box. Like all Glock handguns, the Glock 20 ships in a hard case, lovingly referred to as tactical Tupperware. This case contains the pistol, 3 back straps, 3 magazines, a sight plate, and the mounting hardware, as well as a standard cable lock. Now, all of this is pretty standard, but I wanted to give props to Glock for including 3 magazines with their guns. As someone who likes to have enough magazines not to reload them during a competition, the fact that Glock handguns are still affordable and ship with 3 mags is a huge plus. Now, with that, let's get to the recoil and performance. I fired 500 rounds of various loadings of 10mm auto through the Gen 5 MOS Glock 20 for the review, and I had some pretty big surprises in store for me. Now, first off, I expected the lightweight pistol to have vastly more recoil than it did. After all, prior to getting this gun in my hands, I had been shooting a P220 Legion, an all-steel gun in 10mm, and I expected the recoil of the Glock 20 to be substantially more than that of the Legion. But guess what? It was barely different at all. In fact, I did all of the testing for this pistol while I had a pretty bad case of carpal tunnel syndrome in my right hand, and I was able to blast away for several magazines without any real pain. Now keep in mind, I was running full power 10mm auto ammo exclusively throughout the entire test, so this is very telling. Now what didn't surprise me was how reliable the Glock 20 MOS was. Just like my old 3rd generation Glock 17, this new 5th gen Glock 20 didn't encounter a single malfunction throughout the entire testing procedure. I tried jacketed hollow points, ball, wad cutter ammo, you name it, and all of the rounds fed and fired without a hitch. As far as accuracy, the Glock 20 proved precise enough to easily engage man-sized targets out to 100 yards, and when I ran my competition plate rack was an absolute breeze. It truthfully didn't feel any slower than running a less recoil-intensive round like 45 ACP. So what's the verdict? Is it worth a buy? To be honest, I wasn't expecting much from the gun when I first got my hands on it. It's not the fanciest or the most high-speed, low-drag option on the market. But what the Glock 20 MOS is unwaveringly reliable, perfectly accurate, and remarkably soft shooting despite its use of big bad 10mm rounds and lightweight polymer frame construction. If I had to own just one 10mm auto pistol to take with me while hunting dangerous game or to leave on my nightstand to defend my family with, it would 100% be the Glock 20 MOS Gen 5. Thanks guys. For MLN TV, I'm Jim Grant. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I will catch you guys on the flip side.